Hello everyone, I'm Rick Janzen. Welcome to my fly bench. A short while ago I was able to talk with the manager of the Vancouver Island Trout Hatchery. We were able to discuss the work of the Freshwater Fisheries Society on Vancouver Island and the Southern Gulf Islands. So let's take a little trip down to Duncan and see what's going on in the world of freshwater fishing on the island.
Well, welcome to Rick's Fly Bench. In this episode, I've got something really special for you. I'm just talking with Tristan here from the Vancouver Island Trout Hatchery. And I just wanted to let you as anglers know what's going on the island these days and a bit about the hatchery and its work. So welcome here, Tristan.
Thank you.
Glad to meet you.
Welcome.
So why don't we start, let's talk about the scope of the work of the hatchery. Like, how many lakes, rivers do you guys stock every year?
Yeah, with this facility we stock about 170,000 trout annually into between 55 and 60 lakes and one river on Vancouver Island.
Okay, and that's from Victoria to how far north?
We go as far as Sayward North. And we also stock a couple of Gulf Islands, so we put some fish on Salt Spring Island, Denman Island actually, Pender Island occasionally, and we even stock a few lakes on Sunshine Coast.
Okay, and how many species and strains does that represent then?
So out of this facility we only do rainbow trout and cutthroat trout. We also have a sea run cutthroat trout program. And then within the strain side of things, two rainbow trout strains, so the Fraser Valley domestic strain and then the Blackwater River strain.
Yeah, and how you make those choices on what goes where?
So we stock a lot of urban lakes, and those ones do get the domesticated Fraser Valley Rainbow. We actually don't decide which strains go into which lakes. That's done by the small lakes biologist.
Okay.
And he sets those requests, and then we fulfill those requests. So most of the urban lakes get domesticated catchable, and then the Blackwaters go to more remote lakes, and they're kind of providing more of a niche fishery for people that want something a little bit different.
From my experience of fishing these various lakes from Victoria to the Comox Valley and Campbell River, I can't praise the work enough on the quality of that fisheries that I found there.
Excellent, we appreciate that.
Some great fish and year round. I mean, talking open water, you can fish them right now if you want in January.
Right? Yeah, that's true. Living on the coast.
Okay.
What can you tell us about the history of this particular hatchery? How old is it? How long has it been in operation?
So this facility here was built in 1992 and commissioned first fish were grown in 1993.
That late, eh?
Yeah, prior to that, we had an old site, we call it on Boys Road, which is on the south side of the Cowichan River. Okay. And that was just a small facility. That operated for about a decade. And then prior to that, any freshwater fish that were stocked on Vancouver Island were actually reared at Fraser Valley Trout Hatchery in Abbotsford and struck over. Yeah. And then they realized that that was a very inefficient way to do it, so in the early 80s they established the hatchery on Boys Road.
The whole ferry thing happening there and all that. Yeah. And so now this place is dedicated to it, probably doing a more efficient and bigger job.
Definitely, and it's a modern facility too, so it can be built with energy considerations and that kind of stuff, and also consideration from the staff. Yeah. So we've got fancy toys like fish pumps, and we're not just netting fish out anymore.
Exactly, the old-fashioned way. Yeah.
There's only 8 of us on the hatchery side of things, and one of those is ops manager in the facility. So on the fish culture side of things, there's 6 of us that do.
Okay, right on. And it's some seasonal staff. You mentioned earlier that you bring on one at stocking time.
We do, exactly. So April through July, we'll bring on typically a young adult university student, somebody who's looking to find work or a career.
If you were to talk to a youth that's today that's in high school or entering college, university, who's interested in a career in fisheries work, what advice would you give them?
I was there 25 years ago, or closer to 30 years ago now. Big one is volunteering. Yeah. So go out, find out who's growing fish or whatever aspect of aquaculture you're interested in, and get some experience and see if you enjoy it, because it's a wide array of careers within the fisheries industry that you can work. You can be doing shellfish, you can be doing trout culture, you can be doing algae culture, which feed those organisms.
Okay.
So volunteer, and then to get post-secondary education, Vancouver Island University has an excellent fisheries and aquaculture program, which 5 out of the 6 fish cultures that are employed here are graduates from and VIU. We get prepping students from VIU through school season as well.
Well, that's good to know. Yeah. And so now that you've been here, you say since 2000, you've been in the field since 2000. It's been 23 years. You're 24 now. What are some of the challenges you're seeing today that you weren't familiar with when you started? What are some of the new things coming on?
Probably the biggest one is climate change and just being adaptable to how the environment's changing.
Okay.
So, changing the time of our stockings. If we typically used to start March 1st and end mid-June, Father's Day weekend. Now the waters are typically too warm. The lakes will be too warm on Father's Day weekend, so we try to be done by late May. And if we do a spring event, instead of doing it on a Father's Day weekend, we do a Mother's Day weekend because the lakes are that much cooler.
And then I imagine then your fall stockings are pushed off a little further too.
Correct. Yeah. So we're watching the lake temperatures through September and hoping they drop down. Yeah. Typically, we don't like to stock any lakes higher than if the surface water is in the high teens.
Right.
The fish are coming out between 10 and 12 degree water at the hatchery. Yeah. So you don't want to temperature shock them. Yeah. But we can mitigate that by what we'll do is we'll actually water up the trucks the night before. So then our 10 degree hatchery water becomes 13 degrees. So the fish leave the hatchery at 10 degrees into the truck at 13 and into the lake at 16, 17.
Okay.
So it steps them up a little easier.
Step up. And all the strains and stuff you're stocking is diploid now, isn't it?
Triploid.
Triploid.
Correct.
Triploid.
Yeah. So we're putting triploid. Our Blackwater program is all female triploid actually.
Okay. So these are non-reproductive fish that
Correct.
just keep on growing and not.
That's the theory. If they evade predators and anglers, they will continue to grow. Typically, a diploid fish will also get secondary colors, like spawning colors. Yeah. But you don't see that, especially with an all-female triploid. They stay a nice chrome color, which typically anglers like that chrome fish.
And look on the Go Fish BC website. I noticed that some lakes on the island get a stocking once a year, some get 3 or 4 stockings a year, and some only get a stocking every other year. And so a lot of anglers might wonder why that is. What can you tell us about
That's
stocking?
Primarily driven by the amount of pressure that the lake receives. Yeah. So the small lakes biologist on the island will say Fuller Lake needs 7,000 catchables each year. Yeah. And as a result, and it's also a close lake to this hatchery. Right. So it's easy for us to run down there and drop small batches of fish in. So that way, if we reseed it 3 or 4 times in the spring and 3 or 4 times in the fall, it always allows for a decent density in the lake. Yeah. Although, and that's not so possible when we're stocking Lake Newtown River just through the distance of it. Yeah. So a lake like Echo Lake, that'll receive its full components once in the spring and once in the fall. Right. Yeah. So.
And some of my favorite lakes are up in the Forbidden Plateau area, hiking in the summer there, July, August, fishery up there. It's so fun to enjoy some of the get up in the cooler altitudes when elevations when the weather's hot down below and catch some fish from shore. And I notice those. That's again productivity and fishing pressure. Right?
Exactly. Yeah. So we only do it every second year up there. Yeah. And, that's an exciting one. We all fight over that release because we use a helicopter to stock those lakes.
Yeah, I was going to ask about the various delivery modals that you use. Trucks, obviously, and helicopters for some of those remote lakes.
Exactly. Yeah. So on the island, we only use helicopters for those lakes in Strathcona Park.
So. Talking about lakes and their different stocking regimes, are there any lakes that you would consider sort of groomed for quality fisheries on the island or trophy? We've got those in the interior, they're fly fishing only or reduced limits. What would you say, how many of the lakes on the island would you
there is a handful, and the one that jumps out to me is Redwood Lake in Campo River. So that's being, it's a fertilization program, and the small lakes biologist has also adjusted the stocking rate to lower the rate on it, so therefore more groceries for the fish, the limited number of fish in there, non-retention, so those fish are being caught multiple times. And I've heard reports of beautiful, 4 or 5 plus pounds.
I've seen some good ones out there.
A lot of work has been done by the Freshwater Fisheries Society in terms of accessibility to lakes. I see a lot of stuff that goes on in Fraser Valley and Thompson Nicola and areas about fishing docks and learn to fish programs and borrowing a rod program. I've seen a lot of news about that in the interior, in the mainland of BC. What's been happening on the island in terms of that regard?
Yeah, so a lot of similar programs, the same programs being implemented over here. So we do a rod loan program out of this hatchery here, and also there's some visitor centers on Vancouver Island that we've partnered up with. So you can stop into, in Courtney, the visitor center there, you can stop in and borrow a rod for a day or a week, totally free of charge. We do operate the Learn to Fish programs through the summer months here, which is big, just trying to get new anglers out. Then, as you mentioned, the dock program. So specifically on Vancouver Island, I can think of just recently we put a dock in partnership with Mosaic in Port Alberni at Loon Lake. Okay. We've redone the dock at Kissinger Lake. Lizard Lake also has a new dock in it. And then, off the top of my head, there's Beavertail Lake, Echo Lake, Long Lake, Westwood Lake, Diver Lake, Mayo Lake, Schmanis Lake, Fuller Lake, Dress Lake, Elk Lake, Langford Lake, Glen Lake, and Portage Lake in Souk. So,
and those Learn to Fish programs, they're generally running May
through August, typically on Vancouver Island. We tend to hire university students that are looking for summer work, so that fits well there.
Sure.
And typically kids are looking for activities to do during those months, so the timing's perfect.
And I take it those are quite popular?
They are very popular, I think they book up really fast, so you pay attention to our website, which is gofishbc.com. All this information is available there, and and sign up for those Learn to Fish events because they are hugely popular. Kids love them.
What's one thing we as anglers can do that can improve our fishing experience here in BC and keep it quality?
I think it goes back to the youth and teaching, environmental stewardship and getting kids hooked on fishing.
Exactly.
It's all about educating, and people if they're out fishing and enjoying the environment, they're more prone to protect it. And if they're out fishing, they're also more prone to buy a license, which means the sportfishing program, and more science can be done, more lakes can be stocked. It's just it
feeds itself. Take a kid fishing if you get a chance. Thanks, Tristan. It's been a pleasure.
Well, I hope you were able to pick up some useful information on freshwater fishing on the island. I know I certainly did. And if you want to get the most recent updates, don't forget to visit the Go Fish BC website, where you get stocking reports, maps, and much more. I hope you're able to get some freshwater fishing in this coming year. And while you're at it, take a kid fishing. You won't regret it.